Hi, my name is Beatriz Alva Silva, and I'll be doing my presentation on my sources and my paper. So let me start with my first source. He is Luis Gonzaga Gomez, Mexican immigrant, and his book is Crossing the Rio Grande: An Immigrant's Life in the 1880s. He's basically talking about when he crossed, and the reason why I picked him was because he was a very educated Mexican. He got to college and everything like that. So when he came, he wasn't working in labor. He was doing bookkeeping and he was doing things of that nature. So his story is extremely different than what most Mexican immigrants at that time were. He actually was a huge supporter of opening a college called South Texas State Teachers College in Kingsville, Texas, which became Texas A&M in Kingsville. So that's really awesome. He was very prominent of like education, and he really thought that it was very important. And that's different than most Mexican immigrants, honestly, because they usually just want to work, and make money. So that is my first source. My second source is Benno Levy. He's a Jewish refugee from Nazi Germany. He came to the U.S. in 1935 with his sister and his brother through the German Jewish Children Aid Society, and that's whenever they sponsor the passage and they give the kids to a foster home. So that's what they did, and they were treated very well. And it was right before the Holocaust, so he got to see he saw America and Detroit and everything like that as he loved it because it was a saving grace to him. The rest of his family was victims of the Holocaust, and they didn't have to be because they were in America. So he saw America as saviors almost, like they saved them. They paid for their passage and everything. Their parents were able to meet them 3 years later, before they got, taken into the refugee camps, and it was just before they got taken into the camps at all. Like it was much better for them to just go to the United States, obviously. So they ended up meeting up, but the rest of their family, their grandparents and everything like that, were killed in the Holocaust and everything. So it was good for them. So he saw America as a beautiful thing. He also was drafted in 1943 into the army, and he was proud of that because he wanted to fight for the United States. He wanted to fight for Nazi Germany to be completely done. He wanted Hitler to be completely done. So it was personal to him. It was very personal. So that's why it was something that made him proud. My third source is the interesting narrative of the life of Oladua Equiano. He was a slave. He was a slave from Africa that was kidnapped with his sister. Him and his sister, they were both kidnapped. He actually spent most of his slavery in slave ships and British Navy vessels. So he came to the United States a few times, and then he went all over the West Indies and all over. But he spent most of it working for captains that actually really liked him. His stories start off really rough. They're very rough. The slavery, but once the captains start really getting to know him, they would pick him and they would want him to work for them. So they treated him a little bit better, a little bit better. I mean, he was still a slave, but they were more like his right hand man kind of guy. Which was really cool. He ended up buying his freedom at the age of 21, and he was able to travel the world on his own, got educated, all of these things. And it's such a great story because he spent about 10 years in slavery, but then he was able to buy his own freedom and travel to all these places that he went as a slave, as a free man. So that was very interesting. My last source when it comes to online is Li Chu, The Biography of a Chinaman. Li Chu was a young teenager whenever he was in China, and he worked for his dad in his dad's farm, and he saw one of the villagers that had lived there before come back from the United States rich. He was wealthy. Li Chu says, now he returned with unlimited wealth, which he had obtained in the country of the American wizards. And he says American wizards because it seemed like it was magic. The way how a poor man came from his village that was just, a small village, goes to the United States, comes back, and is just so wealthy. He's like, there must be magic. So he fell in love with that. He's like, he saw how happy this man was, and he's like, I want to be just like that. So he convinced his parents, to let him go, and his father finally gave in and gave him $50 for the passage to San Francisco, which is how much it cost for him to come to San Francisco right before the Exclusion Act. This is where he learned how to be a laundryman, because he mentions that there are no laundromats in China. So he's like, the Chinese man doesn't learn how to do that in China. We learn how to do that here in the United States. So he learned very well when he got raises. He ended up doing $5 a day. So I mean a week, and so it was great, like he ended up starting getting a good money, for them, and he ended up opening his own laundromat. Traveled all over the U.S., had laundromats in different places. He was definitely oppressed at one point. He was run out of his own laundromat, lost all of it. He lost his business. Money was stolen, so many things. So he definitely struggled, but he mentions how the Chinese people were treated badly in the U.S., and he believes, in his opinion, that it's because China wouldn't go to war with America. But if Americans were like that to the Germans, English, and Italians, or even the Japanese, then Americans know that they would go to war immediately, So that he believed that the reason why they were so rude to Chinese is because China wasn't going to do anything about it. So that was his opinion, of course. He also mentioned how the Irish didn't like them because they were laboring men also, so that he realized that that's why they oppressed them. So for my fifth source, I want to use my family, my parents and my sister and my brother-in-law. All of them immigrated from Mexico. My sister came at the age of like 11 or 12, but my parents and my brother-in-law came older, like in their 20s. So their opinion mattered a lot to me. And I'm going to get into talking about how my argument is that to become an American, it is based on mentality, not origin. So what I mean by that is that becoming an American means you adopt the culture, and you having the ambition and the want to better yourself. That's what makes you an American, because that's what America was founded on. It's like you could be from anywhere in the world, and if you are so against the laws and so against American everything American, then you're not an American, because you're against everything. But when you start adopting it and actually taking it all in, then start having this love for this country, then you become an American. Also, I believe that the legacy of American immigration is that the what makes America unique is that they have always, in a way, been here to help, if that makes sense. Like, obviously, there's a lot that goes into that, but what I mean by that is that America is here kind of for the people, if that makes sense. In a lot of places, like, they're more like, what can we get from the people? What can we get from the people? In America, they give you so many opportunities to become who you want to become, which is what in a lot of the rest of the world, they don't feel that way. When I asked my family what they thought, if they believed that they were American, and they said yes, wholeheartedly, and I asked them when did they find that out, or why, what makes them say that, what makes them have love for the United States, is that they're from Mexico. They said that when they went back to Mexico, they thought that Mexico was better, but when they went back and they realized that Mexico was not there for them at all, like they needed loans, or they needed this and that, and Mexico was like, no, like, we can't do that, and the United States was open. They were like, yes, what do you need? Here's work, here's this, here's that, here's education, here's all these things. Like, just give you so much. Obviously, you have to work for it still, but at least it's there. And in Mexico, it's just like, no. So they created a love. A love was born for America. So I do believe that is the legacy of immigration, and that's why we're so patriotic, and because America has given us so much. So that concludes my presentation, and I hope that I can put this all in a very concise paper. But I'll continue to see you guys. Have a good night. Bye bye.